right, I shot 3 videos, and every single one of them had no sound. So I'm redoing this. Hopefully it's going to be a little bit of what you would call shorter. This here is my fabbed up Jim's plate. There was a tool to take off the main bearing. I took it off with a 2x4 to take out that main bearing that I pressed the 5th gear in. And after the fact, I went, I don't want to go through that again because it was a little bit awkward. And so I made a plate, fabbed it up, cut it to the right size, step drilled a hole into it, and then primed it, wet sanded it, and shot the paint, which was important. One of the things I wanted to show you was, before I get this all set back up together, because this new spacer's got to go in, because the old one, if you remember, had ridged grooves into it, and then there's a new, it's in here, a new gasket that's got to go in here the exact right way. But anyway, I wanted to, if there would have been no sound, I could have overdubbed it, but couldn't do that because I had things I needed you to hear, wanted you to hear. So right here, if you see, this is the new 5th gear pressed into the new main bearing, and it hardly makes a noise. Now, when I took off the hub and the pulley for the belt, which is right here, this thing, when I spun it, sounded like rollers. But now you can still hear it, of course, because it's a bearing, but it's hardly making a noise. So it's a good thing that I replaced that. Also replaced behind here, it's already been put back in, and I lost the video, and I'm not going to take this out, is new circlip or C-clip with a new seal behind the shifter pawl. I couldn't remember, I said shifter mechanism. It's a shifter pawl. So this is all together here. And then this is the countershaft bearing pressed in. Actually, I had to tap it in. I'll have to figure out a different way to do that in the future. But I tapped it in, and that is done and fixed. The next thing is I got the trapdoor, countershaft, and the main shaft. This is the main shaft I have to change. And you can see here, this hole right here, this is where the drift key goes. It's all hollowed out. Look how big that is. And of course, you can see here where the hub and everything cooked, or at least scored the main shaft. So the main shaft and all the bearings are out. Bearings are on a couple of dowels and turned upside down, so they come off and go on like that. That's the first thing that goes on. Put it on, it goes upside down, so they come off in order. This is the camshaft bearing set and gear set, and this is the main shaft bearing and gear set with all the spacers. You can see here they have to go on in a certain way. Here. The last thing then is the bearings that were in the trapdoor. And I may need to set my little thing down here so I could show you this. I'll just set it right here. And we'll turn it down. Main bearing here. These bearings go in a certain way. And these bearings go in this way, with the ball bearings showing on this end and the closed end going to the inside. Okay, so what we have here is the old bearings. Now this is what I wanted to show you. Look, I'm spinning them. Look how it spins. What does a new bearing look like when it spins? Look how that thing is rolling. Now, when I originally took this off, and I had it on video and I lost it because there was no sound, there was one of them that was kind of rattling a little bit. So these are the old bearings. They're going to be replaced, that the shaft and the counter shaft were pressed into. And that's pretty much it. That's where we are. I'm waiting for a new tool to show up, because getting these, there's little clips that go in here to hold the bearings on. 1, 2, 3 here, and 1, 2, 3 here. And boy, are those, let me do that again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. They go on to keep some of the bearings stationary. Okay? All right. That's it. One other thing, while I was waiting to put in the put the shafts back together and get the new shaft in, I finally got the braided lines at least temporarily installed here. This one's fully installed here. It goes around, down, and winds up here at my oil filter, which is hooked up to a Jerzee unit oil cooler. But the braided lines are in. Might not look pretty right now, but it'll look pretty decent once it all gets together. Hey, Bubba. What you doing? Okay, so this is the trap door. The counter shaft, which is right here, and the main shaft, which is what I replaced, is in. All the gears are in. The shifter forks right here, 1, 2, 3, that I numbered, are in, and it should be in neutral gear. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to use this shifter cam assembly, which is torqued in to 7 to 9 inch-pounds, and I'm going to run it through the gears to make sure. These nuts here are torqued to like 50 foot-pounds, and that's done. And then of course on the other side here, I just did the other part of the shifter fork assembly here, right here, torqued to 7 to 9 inch-pounds. That's the shifter pull. I'm going to run it through the gears off of that. And here is the new shaft right here. Right now we're in neutral. I can spin everything and nothing else spins. This right here, this nut, is torqued to something like 100 to 150 foot-pounds using Loctite red, a certain 1262. And of course in this there is a Allen bolt nut that holds it, which uses blue Loctite 242 to keep it from coming out. So right now this is sort of, I guess, one of the moments of truth. The real moment of truth is when I run it, assuming it all starts back up again, and running it through the gears and whatnot. So that's where we are at the moment. Next thing up after that is to get this wheel aligned and the belt tightened to the certain specification that Harley requires of us. And then of course over here I have some work to do on this. I repainted this and this right here, and I'm gonna have to push this back in with a C-clamp and start to clean up some of my nicks right here that I'm gonna repair. And then the new brake pads go on and we're going to be ready to go in terms of the back. So the next thing that goes on this side is this cover. This cover right here goes on, and then this of course goes over it to sort of chrome it up. That's how they had it when I originally bought it. I'm going to put all that back on. Of course my braided lines are still waiting to be put in, which won't be able to be cut to size until I put in the oil tank. And then of course after I'm done with all that, actually the starter right there will go in. Okay, fun times. Okay, a couple of big things today. The inner primary, or what they call the chain case in the service manual, is on, and one of the things that has to go behind this here, in between the engine and the inner primary, is this small little rubber gasket. That's the only thing that keeps it from leaking around the stator here and onto the ground. So I had to use, or I did use, something that I used on the Ford Restore quite a bit on certain things, especially things that needed to have oil resistance, and that is a little bit of Ultra Black, Permatex Ultra Black, which I ran all around the lip here very lightly, and then pushed the little rubber gasket here. I mean, it really isn't much, onto it, and then finger tight it down. You have to let it sit for 24 hours. You let it, usually what people do when they use RTV, Permatex, whatever, they put it on something, gasket or whatever, and then they tighten it down right away and it squeezes everything out, and it doesn't work. Everything should go down finger tight and sit for 24 hours. Same thing here for this right here. This is the keyway. This is what was hollowed out in my other main shaft, and this goes on with Loctite. They don't tell you to do it, but shovel head people, what they usually did with the keyways, they put super glue in there to keep the key from moving. So this has to sit overnight for the Loctite to set up, and basically glue it in, because when you start putting on the clutch hub, it can have a tendency to move this key, and then you're in big time trouble, because it'll push the key up back into here, and it won't lock the hub in. So there's a lot of people that go away from this tapered design and move into splines, which I think that's what Harley does now all the time. Which is, you know, I thought about it, but it would have taken a major, a little bit more work and some major modifications to do such a thing. The race that's on here now just protrudes from the inner primary bearing, which is, it's in perfect spec shape right now. Again, the tendency for these things is for these to walk back towards the transmission, forcing you to have to kind of tap the shaft out to get the tool on it to remove it. And that's where I'm at now. I'm at spec, and the bearing race is just a, oh man, I don't even know how much, not much off the bearing here, which is perfect. So that's where we are today. The shifter drum top of the transmission cover is on and sitting here and filled with fluid, and I'm working the gears every now and then to get everything all nice and lubricated up for when we get this thing ready to go again. Of course, this is all filled up here to the bottom of the clutch hub with fluid. That's why you need this gasket here, and that's why you know, I put a little bit of RTV on it, which is it's not in the service manual, but it's recommended by people who know, as is the Loctite on the keyway. All right. Okay, I thought I'd show this. The clutch is on, and I put a brand new diamond chain on this. This has to be cold anywhere between 5/8 and 7/8. I may have to readjust this again because I've been through a few revolutions. That's the measurement. It's cold. It's a diamond chain, which is pretty good. And I changed out the old chain just, you know, because I was here. Of course, the shoe is replaced, and that makes the tension here. But anyway, I'll have to check that again. Anyway, this is what I wanted to show you. This, remember, fell off. Not because of this. This is the adjuster screw for the clutch. And so I just wanted you to see how this mechanism works. When the clutch comes in, it pushes, as you can see, it pushes out, and it releases the pressure plate. And that pressure plate, when it's released, I might be able to show you here. When the clutch is on, everything moves. Let's see if I can show this. Everything here moves. The back, this will all turn, which will run the back wheel. But when the clutch is on, you can see here that the internals spin and the outer part does not, which means you can change gears. You know, there's no drive from the engine going to the back wheel. When it's released, it's tight as a drum, so to speak, which is, you know, why it's called a clutch drum, I guess, in some ways. So that's done. This is my brass piece right here that got all chewed up, and all of that is in. The next thing to go in is the oil container. I can't believe I forgot the name of it. I keep wanting to call it an oil pan. That's not what it is. Goes here, and then all my braided lines. I've got here, this is something that Jerzee Customs worked up for me. And usually what would go right here where this piece is that piece, which runs an idiot light to tell you if you've lost oil pressure. I'm going to run a dual position here and run a gauge. It's going to come all the way up here, and it's going to sit off of here. And then I'm going to keep the oil pressure gauge, idiot light sensor here. You know, because when you're riding at night, it's going to be kind of hard to see up in here, the gauge, because it's not lit, and it'll run and pop the light if I need to. So the next thing to go in, I guess, would be the the oil tank, and it's gotta hook up my neutral switch, which is right here, brand new, and route some wires. I'm going to reroute them. I'm going to try and not reroute them through the oil tank, because the oil tank, that's just a pain in the rear to get wires in and out when you do that. But anyway, oil tank goes in next. That's it.